host for today's event. Welcome to the eFolder Partner Chat. Today's topic is Anchor 2.0, what's new and why it means business. Today we are joined by Pierre Tapia, Vice President of Product at eFolder. Before we go through the agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who registered for the event. With over 560 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it on your computer or by dialing in. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit them as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. Today's presentation follows a logical flow. Pierre will describe the state of the file sync market and the market opportunity that exists for MSPs and VARs. Then he'll explain what's new in Anchor 2.0. With the time remaining, we will open the floor to your questions. Now let me introduce Pierre. Pierre Tapia is co-founder of Anchor and Vice President of Product at eFolder. For the past 2 years, Pierre has cultivated the product vision, team, and execution plan for the Anchor file synchronization platform. Before joining Anchor, Pierre served as an outside consultant for Quest Software, where he developed the communities around Quest Software's network monitoring, managed service, and application management divisions. Pierre, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Ted. Happy to be here.
Okay, let me hand you keyboard and mouse control and take it away, Pierre.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let me know if I've gone too far. Let's see.
You're good.
Okay, great. So the state of cloud file sync, what we're seeing more and more is that consumer-grade services and services that are starting to address the needs of small to medium business and small to medium enterprise arena are having more and more of a presence. And what this usually involves is a lot of bring your own device. Clients who have started off using a consumer product maybe personally are then starting to intermingle that with their business data, bringing their own tablets, laptops, cell phones, and desktops into the corporate environment. So what happens is this bleeding of data that can sometimes translate into the confidential or private or company restricted information blending in with personal or private information or being transferred onto devices that maybe aren't authorized for that kind of data access. So keeping this information not only restricted and separate in the right hands is a big part of what file sync or enterprise-grade file sync is intended to solve. So we're seeing a lot of these types of services starting to make the transition, but coming from a consumer-grade perspective. So what Anchor tries to solve here is the value that we provide to MSPs is that we are the only comprehensive file sync platform built exclusively for MSP solution providers and VARs. And we give a not only a high-level overview over all the clients, endpoints, and organizations that are being managed, but also granular controls over how data is accessed, how it is used, how it's shared outside of the organization. So it really solves a lot of the data leakage problems that come with some of the consumer-grade file sync solutions that we're seeing. So we provide reporting, alerting, we provide access controls, we provide granular visibility into device access across all of the organizations and endpoints that an MSP, a solution provider, or VAR might manage. So we allow for scalable management of the file sync of a file sync platform. Okay. Might be a little lag here, so let me know if I've gone too far. So the key differentiators with the Anchor file sync, the eFolder file sync platform, is that we offer a lasting revenue stream, whereas a lot of these other file sync solutions are also approaching small to medium enterprises and small to medium businesses directly. We want to become the long-term cloud storage provider for you so that you can offer it to your clients and build a revenue stream, a recurring revenue stream off of that. We offer enterprise-grade security, including two-factor authentication, a high level of encryption. We use 448-bit blowfish encryption. Also offering retention policies that might be needed for compliance or auditing purposes, such as infinite revision capture. You set the policies on how long you want to keep the revisions for each of your files, and you can restore deleted or changed files as far back as you need. We also provide mobile access. We have an iOS, Android app. We also have, a web client and an Outlook plugin client, so plenty of interfaces to access the data, all of which are controlled by you with the granular user-controlled features. You can set specific usage requirements at a person, company level. You can set device access requirements at the machine level. You can even do things like throttling bandwidth, so very granular controls over each endpoint, each point of contact. And for some of our more sophisticated partners, we also have great integration. We have an open API that allows you to integrate with your custom provisioning systems. And out of the box, we integrate with Active Directory, LDAP, ConnectWise, and Autotask. Okay. Experiencing just a little lag here. Excuse me.
Hey, Pierre, do you want me to just advance the slides? You want to
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, why don't we just do that? Because we're, all right,
So what's the competitive position? We find a lot of partners that we talk to are running into more Dropbox and Box with the customers or clients that they're proposing a file sync solution to. So all of, across the board, these solutions will provide massive amounts of cloud storage. But what they don't provide, the differentiators, are file server enablement, the ability to take existing file servers that your clients depend on, that sit within, behind the LAN or on the LAN, that your clients might access through a VPN or through a map drive, and say, not only am I going to provide revisioning for this file server, capturing each of the files so that if any file is deleted, we can restore it, capture revisions for each of the files, but we're going to allow access to this file server through all these great interfaces that are controlled, such as the mobile apps, the tablet apps, the Outlook plugin, the web client. So you add this layer of collaboration, access, sharing, where previously none existed, where you can throw VPN out the window or FTP out the window, these cumbersome protocols that require often a lot of involvement from you as an admin, a lot of configuration, and often headaches for the end user. Also, HIPAA compliance. eFolder recently underwent a HIPAA audit for their data centers. Anchor is currently undergoing its audit. We are going to be signing BA agreements for Anchor very shortly. I believe it's within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And this is something that is very difficult to find with solutions like Dropbox or Box. We have a channel-only business model, so we're never going to undercut you. We're never going to compete directly. We want to work with the channel. We know the importance of the channel, and that's why we build features that are specific to the channel, such as Autotask, ConnectWise integration, custom branding across all interfaces, brandable mobile apps, brandable web portal, brandable everything. Every component, anywhere the logo, the Anchor logo is, can be replaced with your own branding. Multi-tenant and centralized management is something you're not going to find with these other solutions. Because we're built around a channel offering, we know that you have to have a bird's eye view of where all your clients are at, what the important notices are across the system, how usage is looking, the ability to forecast for growth, the ability to make recommendations about which features your clients do and don't need, all from a centralized dashboard without having to manage separate credentials, separate security access policies. So we make that very easy for you with Anchor. And as I mentioned, we're deeply brandable. So you can really build a true service offering around this that your clients see as yours. So again, with the channel approach, deeply brandable, even on our mobile interfaces. And then we have PSA and RMM integration. This speaks to the channel-only dedication that we have. So we will interface easily with Autotask and ConnectWise, and through our open API, you can easily connect this into your RMM tool for monitoring services and monitoring agent health. Okay, next slide. So preceding Anchor 2.0, we made the migration to the eFolder cloud. This was a very challenging endeavor. It was necessary for us to scale and to continue providing enterprise-grade services to our clients. So the eFolder cloud has redundant storage, and it has protection against silent data corruption. We have 100% uptime SLA on the eFolder data center. All of the data is stored at rest. That's stored at rest is encrypted. All of the traffic that goes to the data center is sent over SSL. And as mentioned, the data center has been audited fully and offers HIPAA compliance. So the migration to the eFolder cloud is now complete, and allows you to be certain that all of your eFolder services, not just the Anchor file sync solution, are hosted in the same data center and are protected by the same enterprise-grade security standards. Great. Next slide. Thanks, Dan. So let's talk about Anchor 2.0. Anchor 2.0 has been a highly anticipated release, and this is a release we've all been looking forward to, and our development team and product team have been making great strides towards. So currently Anchor 2.0 is feature complete and is in testing. We expect a release date. Ultimately QA decides when the build is going to be ready for public consumption, but we expect release date no later than the end of April. And one of the biggest features of Anchor 2.0 is the file locking feature. And this feature is one of our most requested features. It allows you to place a lock on a file or folder for an indefinite amount of time or a specific amount of time, so that any changes made by other users won't be propagated. So let's say you have an Excel document you're going to be working on for the next day, and you would like nobody else to make changes to that file. It's as simple as locking the file. A lock icon will appear, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here, that indicates the file is not accessible for a write. And so this can also be done at the folder level, so that you can disseminate folders out to your team or to your clients that are not intended for a write at all, and allows them to read the information without making any changes to it. So locking is a big step towards our collaboration, and this locking feature will be available across all interfaces. As you can see here on the web interface, we have the locking feature as well. Right, next slide. Another major feature of Anchor 2.0 is the agent health reports. The agent health reports allow you to send a scheduled report of the agent's status. This was a highly requested feature because our partners wanted to know what the agents were doing at a given time of day. And so with the agent health reports, we're going to be able to show a status for each client, including whether the client is in sync, whether it's syncing, if it can't sync for whatever reason, if the agent version is out of date, and then you can get detailed information about how many files are in the queue to be synced, what the queue count is, how many files are excluded from being synced, and you can get an idea for how long a sync is going to take before it's completed. So this gives you a high-level overview, a scheduled report of what each of the status is for your client machines, and it allows you to take proactive action if an agent can't sync, if an agent is taking too long to sync, or whatever reason there might be. So this health report is another way that we give visibility across the board, across all the organizations, to our partners on the health of their sync clients. Okay, next slide, Tim. Another feature that we're introducing in 2.0 is the ability to subscribe your user-created team shares to machines. Previously, any team shares that were created by users were accessible by the web. We're now expanding this functionality so that users can create their own team shares and optionally sync them to the machines that they control. One other feature you might see in this screenshot, which I'll highlight here, is a daily email digest. Your users can subscribe to a team share for an update on what files have changed on a recurring basis. So if there's a highly collaborative team that you've got, or a distributed team that may not communicate too frequently but wants an update about the changes that have taken place over in that team share, they could subscribe to a daily email digest for that team share and get an understanding of what has happened, what has transpired over the past business day. So that daily email digest will also be in 2.0, and it's optional for your users. They can subscribe to it on demand. So the user team share feature is great also because there might be some machines that they want their own team shares they've created synced down to, and there might be other machines that they don't want them synced down to, and now they have the option to choose which machines have access to which team shares they've created. Great. Okay, next slide. All right, and now the ability to hide admin features. This is one of the features in 2.0 that speaks to our granular control over the environment that we provide our MSPs. So this offers you the ability to show or hide the PSA tab on your org settings, or show or hide the authentication tab, which allows you to connect an Active Directory source. Now, for those who aren't intimately familiar with the Anchor experience, we have different user roles in Anchor. We have the ability to create an org admin. So you might have a point of contact at a business that's maybe the business owner or a trusted partner within the business that wants to have control over which accounts are created, wants to be able to create their own shares, wants to be able to monitor the status of machines, but you want to limit access to that user. Well, previously we allowed admins, system admins, which would be the MSP, the VAR, or the solution provider in this case, allowed them to disable certain things, such as preventing an org admin to preventing them from being able to see other users' files, where they could still administer the system, but they couldn't browse into other users' files. So this was a big step towards more granular roles, more granular controls and permissions for each of our roles. Now we have the ability to hide certain feature sets for that particular organization, such as the authentication or PSA settings, which many admins may not want the org admins to see. So just continuing to enhance the granular control over the feature sets that you can or can't expose to your clients. Okay, next one. Collision file resolution. So the way Anchor has handled collision files, or files that have conflicts, let's say two users are working on one file, for example, and two users make a change at the same time. This is a very common example, where a user makes a change to a file while they're offline, and another user who's online makes a series of changes. In order to prevent the overwriting of those changes, what we previously did was created collision files. So the files would be named separately. It would say this is Ted's file, this is Pierre's file, and it allowed for a clear distinction between whose file had which changes. Now, this wasn't always desirable because you would end up with an additional file, and it would automatically get synced up. So if this was a rather large file, sometimes this would require the syncing up of both files to all endpoints. Now we have a remediation screen, which allows you, when a collision condition is met, this remediation screen will allow you to either create a separate file, so you can create the collision file in this case, allows you to discard your local changes in case that you didn't actually want to make those changes, or it allows you to go to the file to see what the changes were that you made and remediate manually. This collision file screen is nice because it also offers an actions dialog, which we're going to be expanding on, allowing the user to take more control over the events that transpire on their system. And it gives them visibility over each of the events that have occurred. If there's a series of collision files that are created, they can manually remediate these if they wish. Great, next slide. Also, coinciding with the Anchor 2.0 release, we will be releasing our Anchor Windows Phone application. This is Windows Phone 8, and it will have all of the functionality of our existing mobile apps on iOS and Android, but for the Windows Phone 8 operating system. So you can see screenshots here. The development has largely been completed on this. Also, testing is being wrapped up for the Windows Phone 8 offering, and it will offer the ability to view your backups, view favorite files. Ted, if you wouldn't mind advancing one slide, I believe there's another Windows Phone screen share. Perfect. So it'll allow you to see your favorites, your backups, the ability to share, the ability to rename, move, and delete. Just offering another interface for your clients to be able to update the files that they're accessing. So full access on this control, and also, as with our other phone applications, we're also going to allow the ability to set a passcode lock. So in the case that the user has confidential files that they would like a second layer of security, they can place a passcode lock, so anytime the application is minimized and open, a passcode is required in order to enter the application. Okay. Great. Next slide. And a few additional features that we've got. The syncing is going to be vastly improved in Anchor 2.0. We are now batching our downloads, so a series of downloads will be clustered. Instead of doing a download at a time, we're going to be doing a series of downloads at a time. Also, in 2.0, we've made an architectural change that will allow for simultaneous uploads and downloads. Previously, Anchor has a queue-based system that takes a file at a time and uploads or downloads, based on that queue. Well, the architecture has changed in 2.0 to allow for simultaneous uploads and downloads, which will be following in a future release. 2.0 does introduce the architectural change, but the feature change itself will be introduced in a future release. But a benefit of this architectural change is overall we're going to get faster sync, which is great for all of our end users. And also we're going to have GUI support for terminal servers. Previously on terminal servers with multiple sessions, the GUI was only active for one user session. Now the GUIs properly distribute which GUI is registered to which user and displays all of the appropriate events for that user. So we've enhanced the support for terminal servers. If you've got big terminal server environments, our sync client works amazingly well with those environments. Great. Next slide. Fantastic. So, Ted, would you like to speak on the market opportunity? Should I go through this?
Yeah, sure. So let me, I just want to remind everybody, those of you who have submitted questions, there's a small mountain of them, and we're going to be quickly getting into those momentarily. What I just want to quickly touch on before we get into formal Q&A on the 2.0 release is just talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of how partners are packaging and pricing and bundling these services for their clients. What you'll find is, as Pierre mentioned, the Anchor solution is exclusively available to MSPs and VARs. And what you'll find is you have a lot of different entry points. I mean, you have a lot of flexibility in terms of deciding how many licenses you go with. We didn't get into it that much. I mean, the first decision you can make, of course, is whether you want to do a private cloud deployment where you simply license the software and put it in your own colo, or whether you want to go with the so-called SaaS version of the product, which includes the 100 gigabytes per user of storage. But what we see in general is that a typical partner's average wholesale cost is anywhere from $5 to $7 per month. And then really the street price today for a business class sync solution is around $15. Now, what we see is the vast majority of eFolder and Anchor partners today are MSPs who are adding a lot of value when they deploy a solution like this. So they're doing security deployments, they're doing monthly or quarterly reporting, they're handling add moves and changes on behalf of the client, they're providing help desk. And because of all those things, what we see is partners are easily able to charge anywhere from $15 to $25 per user per month. And this is a very hot category. You solve a whole host of problems for the client and their users, and it's a sort of product line where you can be making a 2 to 3x markup on your wholesale costs on a monthly recurring basis. There's also a lot of partners who are fully leveraging the built-in file and folder backup capabilities and packaging the overall solution in a lot of different creative ways. I mean, either selling blocks of storage or selling storage on a per gig basis. The real beauty here is that we leave the pricing and packaging up to you. Your clients aren't going to be shopping you, on the web. You're able to come out with a branded solution that's unique to your own company with your own pricing and packaging service approach. And what a lot of partners are doing is, I think one big decision every partner needs to make, of course, is are you going to sell this as a standalone managed service, or are you going to incorporate it into your overall managed services bundle? The good news is the choice is yours, but we see partners doing either of those things. So before we get into Q&A, if you're, the vast majority of the folks on the line today probably are already deploying the Anchor solution, and so they I want to get to everyone's detailed feature questions, but if you aren't yet deploying the Anchor solution, you've got a couple ways to kick the tires and learn more about the product from a hands-on perspective. First of all, we have a 21-day free trial for any qualified partner. You can access that by simply going to anchorworks.com and clicking on the Contact Us button and filling out a form. And as another alternative to get, learn more about the product, we can set up a one-on-one demo with you to explore the product with a product expert. So with that, let's get into your questions. Let's go on back. Pierre, let's tackle a couple questions about Windows Phone. First of all, can you just clarify the release timeline for the Windows Phone application? And the other question that came up that I want to tackle from Luke was, is there going to be a Windows RT version?
Great questions. Great questions. Thanks, Chad. So the Windows Phone 8 timeline is it's going to coincide with the 2.0 release. As I mentioned, the application has been built, is feature complete, and now is just undergoing testing. So we hope it'll definitely be no later than April, the end of April, but we hope much sooner. It's very likely we'll have it out within the next few weeks. Also, regarding Windows RT. Yep. Windows RT is absolutely something we've considered and had internal discussions about. We're still waiting to gauge the interest of partners for the Windows RT application. There have been some talks at Microsoft about whether or not how integral the RT platform is going to be to their continued development efforts. So we're going to wait to gauge the continued interest of partners in that regard, and then make a move from there. So currently there are no development efforts underway, but discussions have been had around the Windows RT platform.
Okay, great. And then I wanted to Peter has a question around branding. Can you just for the folks who are on the line who maybe haven't seen a live demo or played with the free trial, can you talk a little bit about how partner branding works? Where does the partner logo go? Where do we use the generic sync tool icon, etc.? Yeah,
it's a great question. So the way we've set it up is that on our hosted solution, we have the synctool.com domain. This domain is generically branded, and it allows you to create a subdomain with us. So it might be msp.synctool.com. Then you can share this out to your clients and offer them a fully branded web portal. So the fully branded portal includes your logo in the top left corner, your own custom terms of service when they install the client, own custom systray icon and favorites folder on all operating systems. The service name itself is branded on the sync client. The folder and program files is branded. So the branding is across the board, but it allows you to choose your own custom solution name. On the mobile apps, we ship to the App Store a generically branded app called SyncTool. But once your users log in for the first time, they authenticate with their organization, we know who they are. Your custom branding will be displayed every subsequent time that they open up the app. So the brand is generically labeled SyncTool, but when they open up the app, they get this custom experience that's offered by you. It's a splash screen with your logo. Looks very nice. And so this is across the board for all the clients we have. We have the ability to swap out your logo, your terms of service agreement. The Outlook plugin, for example, also allows you to brand it, so it shows up with your icon, your application name. MSP Sync is a very common format that our partners use, or MSP Box This is also a very common format. But it allows you to change everything from not just the logos that are displayed, but the actual name of the application and the name of the folder that your clients are going to be adding files to.
Okay, great. Pierre, let's kind of change gears. There's a small pile of file locking questions, so let's go through them. So Sean wants to know what happens when someone saves a locked file that didn't initiate the lock, i.e., they are offline when the lock was initiated by another user.
Great question. That user will be notified when they come back online that the file that they made a change to the changes that they made could not be uploaded because the file was locked, and it will tell them which user placed the lock, and it will offer them, through the action screen, it will offer them the ability to remediate. So they can say, I want to discard my changes, I would like to save this as a new file, or I'd like to go to the file, maybe copy it out, and then reach out to the user and see how to reconcile those changes. So the user is then prompted to remediate the change while the lock is placed. So the notification system here is very robust. They get a systray notification. They have the actions panel that reminds them they have pending actions to take on files that have either collided or changes have been made to a locked file that need to be remediated. And so that's how the user is able to move forward if they've made a change to a locked file.
Okay, great. And then Jim wants to know can the file locking be set to automatic rather than the user having to manually set the lock?
Great question. So one of the enhancements we're pushing towards, which may be in the 2.0 release, but will certainly be in subsequent releases, is to automatically place the lock for common productivity files such as Office documents, PDFs, and the like. So it's definitely something we're aware of. We want to make it optional because we don't want, for admins who want to offer that feature and who make all of their users aware of how that works, it's great. But for admins who think that it might be a little cumbersome because locks that are placed automatically may not be removed if a user goes offline and other edge cases, we're going to make that optional. But it's certainly something we've considered and are working towards implementing.
Okay, and kind of a related question to kind of management controls and file locking. Pat wants to know, I assume we'll have a way to unlock files in the management portal. I see a lot of help desk calls on this.
Absolutely. Admins have override access on any lock. So admins can remove a lock at any point in time just by virtue of them being admins. You can also disable locking for an organization. It might be something that you want to sell up to a partner, and maybe it's a value add. You say, hey, would you like this additional collaboration feature that's built into the product? It's something you can enable on a per organization basis. But yes, admins will be able to remove locks. Let's say if another user accidentally places one on a folder where it wasn't intended, or if a user places a lot of locks and then leaves the company or is offline for numerous days, admins and org admins will be able to remove a lock.
Fair enough. And then Jeffrey wants to know, can you talk more about file locking feature and how it works in conjunction with file server enablement? And maybe before we dive into the question, just kind of explain file server enablement for any folks on the line who may be new to how that feature works.
Absolutely. So file server enablement allows you to install a sync client on a file server and map directories, existing directory structures, without moving them into any sync folder or anything like that. Map them where they sit to folders in the Anchor cloud. So a common example of this is on a file server you might have specific user folders, and then you might also have team folders such as accounting, marketing, executive, and so on. Well, with file server enablement, you can install a client and map the user folders to users within Anchor, and map the team folders to team shares within Anchor, so that when users are in the office, they can still use their map network drive and directly access the file server as they did before. And when they're outside of the office, then they have the added benefit of being able to share large files, being able to access the files from all of the mobile applications, the Outlook plugin, and so on. And then remote workers, of course, who may not ever be in the office, have the benefit of collaborating with those internal users, accessing the same files that are stored on the same file servers as them without cumbersome protocols like VPN or FTP. So that's how file server enablement works. And the most common implementation was the one I mentioned, where you've got a file server with an agent installed. All of these directories are mapped to the Anchor cloud. Users are internally inside the office, are using their map drive to access the file server directly, and the sync client in the background is syncing all of the changes, backing up the files, making sure that everything gets synced to the proper place, person, and team. So with file locking, the challenge is, of course, that you can't communicate locks to users over who are using map network drives, because a map network drive is a Windows map drive. It's a Windows feature. So we don't have control over the notifications. What we're working on for potentially the 2.0 release, but and possibly the 2.1 release, is the ability to set read-only locks, perhaps just on file servers, that would allow you to set the read-only flag so that even users who have a map drive are prevented from making changes, or at least notified that the file they're trying to edit has a read-only flag set and they can't make a change to it. And so that way, at least there is some notification, some warning to the user that the file they're trying to edit is not accessible for a write.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let's kind of change gears. We may come back to some file locking questions, but there's so many questions. Can you talk a little bit about selective sync? I've seen many questions on that in the queue, and can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently Anchor allows you to selectively sync team shares to certain machines. And team shares usually carry the bulk of a company's files because these are the collaborative folders that a lot of people are putting stuff in. So you can selectively say, I want this team share to sync down to this person's computer, but not their other computer, not their home laptop. Or I only want this folder to be accessible via the web. So in that way, it's selective sync for the team share aspect. But what a lot of people want is selective sync for subfolders. They would like to be able to say, I want these folders to sync, but not these specific subfolders. And that is absolutely a feature that we're working on. We're aware of the benefits of this feature. It's not something that's going to be in 2.0, but it's definitely on the roadmap for Anchor.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, we addressed that. Let's see here. Can you talk a little bit about, there's several questions on the current authentication capabilities. Can you talk about the existing, how Active Directory and LDAP integration works today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two ways of authenticating with an LDAP source. You can either connect to the LDAP server directly if the server is exposed over the internet, is publicly exposed, so that our server will talk to your LDAP server directly, or you can use our agent as a proxy. So if your LDAP or AD server is behind a firewall, this is a great method you can use. You install an Anchor client, just a standard sync client, on your AD server, and we support Windows and OS X, and the client will authenticate, will proxy all of the authentication requests directly to the AD server. So this is a great way and a secure way of sending credentials to and from the Anchor server through the sync client itself. And all of the authentication we do is pass-through authentication. So we want to make sure that if your credentials change, if you disable a user, if you remove a user, that is immediately honored in the Anchor system. And so that's why we do pass-through authentication. We won't store the AD credentials on our server. We'll automatically pass that through when users log in via the web. When they log in on the mobile apps, we authenticate directly with the AD server and get an authentication approval return from those AD sources. So that's one aspect of authentication. We've got AD and LDAP. Anchor also has two-factor authentication on the web, and we have got the passcode authentication on our mobile apps, which allows you to add a second layer of security on these interfaces. So you can enable two-factor authentication for a user on the web so that users, when they log in, have to receive a text message, have to receive an email, or have to use an authentication app such as Google Authenticator in order to log in. There has to be a second layer of verification before the user can get in. And in our 2.0 release, this wasn't mentioned in the presentation, but among many of the other features that are coming out that weren't mentioned is the ability to force two-factor authentication for an organization. So this is a nice value add. Allows you to require an additional layer of security for any authentication requests across the board.
Okay, great. And then let's kind of change gears. There are several questions around ConnectWise and Autotask integration, and then Dale has a specific question. Will ConnectWise integration sync to customer agreements so we can automate billing, user account, and storage billing? Was the specific question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've had a great relationship with ConnectWise and Autotask and work very closely with their integration teams. Currently, Anchor supports ticketing integration for both ConnectWise and Autotask, where we'll allow you to push any activity within our system as a ticket to ConnectWise, and you can push it to the appropriate customer. So we allow you to map the customers within Anchor, the organizations, to the accounts or customers within ConnectWise and Autotask. Billing integration is certainly on the roadmap, and we recently introduced the notion of service plans. Late last year, we introduced the ability to create your own service plans within Anchor, which allow you to turn certain features on and off, to allocate storage, to set user limits, to prevent the creation of sub-organizations. And that is going to be our integration point with ConnectWise and Autotask when we do build the billing integration. So billing integration is absolutely planned. We've already put a lot of the features in place that are necessary in order to get that integration done, and we're making headway towards that.
Okay, great. A couple questions on health checks. Let's see here. So Rachel wants to know, can we set up a schedule for the health reports?
Absolutely. So on the presentation, I kind of went through the slides a little quickly, but you could see on the health report slide, it has, we've added to our reporting screen essentially a agent health checkbox, and it'll basically output exactly what you're seeing on this agent health report screen, but in an email format that will be sent to you or an admin or to your or to the business owner at the organization that you're managing, that gives you the rundown on what the status of the machines is. So you can absolutely schedule it. You can set it to be sent out on whatever interval is convenient for you. And I should mention also, Ted, that these states here are real-time. So we capture these as soon as a state change is made on the agent. These states are pushed. You can see they're color-coded. Agent out of sync is orange. Agent can't sync is red. In sync is green. So it's a nice way to just, at a glance, take a look at the health of the clients across an organization or across the entire system.
Okay, and then another related question from Mike on, well, wait a minute, who's it from here? Let me get back here. Actually from Christian. Will agent health information be available via API?
Great question. Not in 2.0. It is certainly something we want to make available to our partners so that they can integrate it with their own systems. We are constantly expanding our API. There are many API additions that are going into 2.0, specifically around the control over file server enablement, the ability to create mappings on a file server via the API. So we're always expanding our API capabilities, and we plan on adding the agent health report queries to the API as well. It's probably not going to be in the first version of 2.0. It might be in 2.1, but it's something that's on our minds and on the roadmap.
Okay, and then let's see here. So Lance wants to know about what is the plan with nested file permissions?
Yeah, great question. So file locking was a great feature for our development team and our product team because it really allowed us to dig deep on how to properly add an attribute to a file or a series of files or a folder or a series of folders. And this is kind of like the precursor to more granular ACL-related permissions, such as read-only, read-write, view-only. So a big push for Anchor this year, 2014, is the ability to honor the permissions that you've set and to match those within the system. So this is probably the next step in this development is going to be the introduction of groups, which we have planned for a near-term release, which will allow you to create groups of users, and then from there we're going to continue to build up to the granular permissions where you can say this type of user can read this folder but can't write. This type of user has full access. This type of user can only view. So yeah, it is definitely something that's top of mind and is on the roadmap, and we've built a lot of features, architecturally speaking, that will allow us to get to that point.
Right, and I think a related question that just came in from Travis is any plans, and I think this is directly related, is any plans for Anchor to honor AD permissions for the file server enablement?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we live and breathe for our MSPs. I mean, we try to build a beautiful experience, and we are always thinking about the functionality for end users, but we know what the needs are from the MSP perspective through lots of conversations with you guys. So thanks for the great questions. What we are absolutely planning on building an interface between the permissions that you've already established. Many MSPs spend weeks, months, painstakingly establishing their permissions, and along with the files and folders that they would like accessible, via cloud interface, they would also like these permissions to be honored. So that is certainly our intention and our plan. we have no diverging goals there. That's where we want to be.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, there's several questions that have come in around, kind of how we do the software releases. So I think it makes sense to clarify, that software maintenance and updates are included, and talk a little bit about how it's included in our pricing approach, but talk on a practical level for SaaS and private cloud. I mean, how do we actually roll out a release? What's that experience like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the software development cycle for us is always evolving, and we always try to condense it so that we can get more features out faster for our clients. 2.0 was somewhat of an exception in that it had a much bigger feature planted inside of it, which is the file locking feature. Now, we were able to build a lot of features in tandem, like the health reports and some of these granular permissions and the user-subscribed team shares, but the file locking feature took a lot more time, a lot more development and testing efforts. So usually what will happen is we'll aggregate the feedback from our community, the feature requests that many of our partners have contributed to, the comments we get from support, along with other stakeholders in the company such as sales and marketing, and then we'll develop a release, or we'll develop our roadmap from there. And each release usually has one or two very impactful features, such as file locking, and then we'll have a slew of features that are minor features, as we call them, but usually also very impactful, like the agent health reports, which is going to make a big difference for a lot of our clients. Once a release has been outlined, then we create the specific issues for each release. The development team tackles them, and once the issues have been, once we're code complete, it goes into testing, where we do rigorous stability and load testing and edge case testing on it, so that we can release it out to partners. So we try to release as frequently as possible. The 2.0 release took some additional time because of the migration that had to take place, moving from one data center to the other. But with that underway and with all the benefits of that, now a part of the offering, we are hoping to accelerate the release cycle, and we're always growing our development and QA resources so we can bring more releases to you much sooner. So I hope that clarifies a little bit about how we plan and organize releases, and where the inspiration for each feature comes from.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of really just practical questions, like so how does the release actually show up to the user? I mean, is it auto update? I mean, that's kind of the.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll announce to partners that a release is going to be shipped on a certain date, and then the clients and the server will be updated automatically by us. It requires no intervention on your side. So we'll make the announcement to the community, inform everybody out. There will be an email blast that goes out to all existing partners, and then we push the release on a specified date so that everybody can be prepared for it. And that release email will usually include the release notes, a detailed description of every feature that's going to be included.
And that happens simultaneously with private cloud and SaaS updates?
Sometimes the private cloud and SaaS updates are staggered, but usually by no more than just a few weeks. Our private cloud partners have certain specific requirements and specific configurations that require separate updates. But yeah, usually they're not staggered by more than a few weeks, and very often they're pushed at the same time.
Okay. And then there were a handful of questions. eFolder, we recently opened our Canadian data center, but the SaaS version of Anchor is not yet available to Canadian partners. Is there a timeline for that?
It's certainly a priority for our DevOps team and our development team to set up another instance in the Canadian data center. We're going to push 2.0 first, and then that's going to become a priority for us. We definitely will want a Canadian presence. It's been something that's been talked about quite a great deal, and a lot of our private cloud partners happen to be in Canada for the specific reason that they want their data stored close to them. So yeah, it is certainly a priority. At the moment, there's no specific timeline I can give, but it shouldn't follow too much further than after 2.0.
Okay. Okay, great. We're just about out of time here. There's still lots of questions that we haven't been able to get to, but what I want to do is just let everyone know that if you are not yet using the Anchor product, we do have a free trial available to any qualified MSP or VAR, and you're also invited to take a deep dive product demo with a product specialist at any time, and you can request that proactively by just going to anchorworks.com. The other question a lot of folks ask is, were there copies of the slides available and a recording of the session? Two things. For everybody who attended, we will be sending out copies of the slides, and there will be a on-demand version of today's webinar, the recorded version, posted to eFolder's YouTube channel. And we'll also be sending out a link to the downloadable Windows Media File version that you can either supply to a colleague or to your engineering staff, whatever the case may be. Let's see here. So with that, I'm gonna wrap us up here. Pierre, thank you very much. Great job tackling all of those questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Ted.
And for everybody for joining us today, thank you very much for your interest in Anchor and eFolder and for making some time for us today. We look forward to talking to you all soon. Take care. This is Ted Holsey with eFolder signing off. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Ken. Bye.